Good morning, fantasy football fans. My name is Gary, aka the IDP tipster, and this is my cohort IDP-minded James. How you doing this morning, James?
I am doing well, ready to start trashing some guys and talking all about how I don't like them. It's going to be fun.
Right. Our topic, we're going to have Elvin Ryan joining us. If he can make it here, he'll probably be joining us in midstream. For that purposes, I should probably go ahead and change what we got going on in front of us. Look a little bit better. Yeah, something. I don't know. There we go. Something like that. All right. So Elvin might be joining us here in a little bit. And our topic today is basically stock down players, defensive players in the NFL or for fantasy football. For whatever reason, their situation's looking like it's going to change coming up in the 2021 season, either prior or during the season. So it might be a good time to just avoid in redrafts or possibly in dynasty leagues if some of these players hold any value to someone, or you can add them on in a trade. They might be somebody you want to think about moving. So I think that covers it. What do you think, James?
Yeah, it does. I'm going to be coming with some heavy hitting names. Not so much
Wow.
because I think any of these guys are trash or junk or not going to be at all worthy of a roster spot.
Right.
But I also just want to bring in some names that I think people aren't going to think about as on the decline side of time. And I think they're all possibly there. And if you could flip them for something that's also a high end piece that is on maybe the upside,
Right.
I think I'd do it.
Yep. Well, hey man, that's why you make the big bucks. We're here to hear what you got going on. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off, man?
Yeah, so I'll kick it off with a gigantic bang, and I'll start talking about Aaron Donald, the
Wow.
greatest defensive lineman we all know,
Right.
number one D tackle. Everyone knows him as just the beast inside. No one can touch him. He needs to be double teamed on every single play. He's, a superstar. He's
Right.
also turning 30 in 5 days.
Right.
A team also drafted Bobby Brown. Not to say that he's going to come and take Aaron Donald's spot, but Aaron Donald might start seeing a little bit smaller of a snap count. They might try and use him more situationally in terms of pass rushing, and he just might not be that absolute stud that he's been. He's going to still be good. He's going to still be at the very top. He's still within my top 10 overall defensive lineman. I'm not saying at all just junk him and throw him by the wayside, but it's something to think about. When elite guys are elite, no one ever wants to think about, well, they're going to not be elite eventually. And it does happen. At age 30, when you're an interior defensive lineman, you're old. You might not, age and decline immediately. He might have another 3 or 4 years in him, but he also might not. And thinking about getting out from under him and getting a gigantically beautiful package by trading him is an idea that I think makes a lot of sense that no one's really throwing around because he's still Aaron Donald. But eventually he's not going to be. And if you're a year early, it's better than being a year late and getting out.
Yeah, and I mean you're exactly right. It's funny. I don't know if you caught it yesterday or not, but I was going through some defensive line bios for our draft guide that's coming up, which I want to mention, folks. Please subscribe, like, comment, share. If you subscribe, we're going to start handing out those draft guides to winners for. We're going to draft every 50 subscriber we have. We're going to give out another one. So we're sitting at giving out one. Appreciate you if you would support us by subscribing. I actually thought about this yesterday and actually put a tweet out on Twitter where I'm mainly at. And I was having a hard time between Leonard Williams for the Giants and Buckner. Both of them, one's 26, one's 25, one's 26 or 26 and 27, moving them up in my dynasty over Aaron Donald for the fact of Aaron Donald is 30 years old, and you're right. It's not like the guy is probably going to disappear, But we're talking about stock down, and in a dynasty league, at least, I could see where he has been in his prime for the last couple of years. You could have got the most out of him in a trade right now, you know? So this is probably the closing of the window. This season, it's going to be the closing of the window. I know the guy is just built like a shit brick house, you know, and some of these guys surprises as it goes on, but you have a 50-50 chance that he's going to start losing that step. And as soon as it happens, you know, you're going to start taking a discount in what you could get out of Aaron Donald. So, hey, Elvin, how you doing, man?
What's going on, man? Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're perfectly fine, man. I'm glad you could join us this morning, and look forward to it. So, James just started us off. We were just in the middle of it. I was just following up and throwing some thoughts on there with James. He's suggesting that Aaron Donald is possibly a stock down guy right now. He's about 30 years old. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I still have him as my defensive tackle. I mean, my number one defensive tackle.
Yeah.
I think most people do, but I could see it. I mean, with age, defensive tackles, I mean, they're kind of like IDP's running back. So,
Right.
One bad season, I mean, it's a slippery slope. If you hold him too long,
Right.
you're going to get nothing for him.
Right. And I think that's what – go ahead, James.
I was going to say, to give a comparison to the offensive side of the ball, he's like Travis Kelce. He's clearly the number one guy. He's older. He's a superstar who probably, if you're going to bet on someone being an outlier, it's probably going to be Aaron Donald. But also, you're betting on them being an outlier. So maybe sit back, decide that you can flip him, because right now we know it's his peak value. Next offseason, there is not a scenario where his value is higher than it is today. He'll be 31 next offseason. Even if he's coming off of a defensive player of the year, he's going to be 31. You're not going to be able to flip him. It's not so much that I think that Aaron Donald is crashing. He's my number one defensive tackle as well, and he should be in every league. And if you're looking at rankings that don't have him there, you're looking at the wrong rankings. But also, it's just you got to think about the future, especially when you're thinking about dynasty. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to trade out of somebody a year early as opposed to a year late. And I'm getting more on board mentally with Aaron Donald being a guy I'm moving. Maybe I don't want to move him this offseason, but in season doing a flip, picking up DeForest Buckner and whoever else with it just to flip him. I kind of like it. It's just sprinkling in that thought early so that when it's time to actually move him, you're mentally prepared, because nobody actually wants to do it. But I think that it might be savvy.
Well, if you're in a dynasty league and you're not competing, if you know you're not going to do well this year, and you're sitting on Aaron Donald, it's probably a prime time to get the max out of him in a trade. You know, if you're in a redraft or if you're competing for that ring, if you know you're going back to your league's playoffs, then hey, you know, you gotta split the hairs there and decide on the ring and keep them, or you know, well, what can I get for him that you know, maybe you're sitting on Buckner and Leonard Williams too, or someone like that, so it doesn't matter. So that's a good one. If you Elvin, do you want to throw in our way? Who are you figuring on stock down either this off season or during the season?
Yeah, I could see someone like Terrell Edmonds going down. I know that they declined his fifth-year option. He was a hot commodity early on in his career, and now, I mean, he's just 24, but it's going to be his fifth year in the league. Mika Fitzpatrick is clearly outperforming him over there with Pittsburgh. I know you're a big Pittsburgh fan. Aren't you, Gary?
No.
I'm going crazy.
No. I'm an NFL fan. I used to be a Chargers fan. I bailed on them when they moved. Nope.
Okay. But yeah, no, I could just see that. I mean, whenever someone on your own team starts outperforming you, your team doesn't pick up the fifth-year option. I mean, it's still early, so you might be able to find someone in your league who has hope that at 24 he can find a team next year or the year after, and he can re-blossom his career, but I'm out.
Yeah, yep. And I have no problem with that. I've never been a huge fan of either of the brothers. I've actually, his brother has been sliding down, from his first rookie season and where he got 120 tackles. He's not improved on that. He's actually making less plays too. So I agree with you. I don't know if it's a matter of the Pittsburgh system or what it is. I don't think that he's ever played out to be the hyped, strong safety that we thought that he could possibly have been. I don't think he's ever sniffed a top 10. So what do you think, James?
Yeah, I think that's a great one because I think he's one of those players that you see and you have all this potential. He's so young. He's on that Pittsburgh Steelers defense that's so good. And he's just solid. He's fine. He's not like horrendous, but he's just kind of moving along and putting up some games and doesn't really blow up for anything. And he's just there. And I think that there's a lot of love behind his name still, so to speak. No one's out there going, oh, he's trash, he's done. But 2 years from now, they might be thinking that. So, I completely agree that using his age as a weapon for your advantage is a great way to do things. I recommend this all the time with second-year guys who failed in year one. I'm fine with getting out from under them and while they still have that prospect upside, they've got that shiny, well, year one was who knows, but it's coming in year two. With Terrell Edmonds, he's been in the league 4 or 5 years, but he still has that because of his age. So I think if you want to move from him, you definitely can, because like Elvin said, where's he moving? Minkah Fitzpatrick is the guy in that secondary.
Mm-hmm.
What is Edmonds going to do? He's going to be solid, but that ceiling isn't where it should be with his name and his hype. So moving on from him, completely agree.
Replaceable.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, I guess it's my turn. And I have been pulling for Adrian Phillips as a Charger. And last year, he was one of my so-called sleepers when he joined the Patriots. I'm reversing course, and I hate to do it after, there are people out there that's followed me for a long time that just know that there's been, anytime there was injury and with the Chargers, I'd be like, hey, man, go get Adrian Phillips. He's going to be the next man up, filling in. He'll get you some production, stuff like that. And I was really on him last year as soon as he signed with the Patriots. I loved it, 2-year contract. But now, as we have seen in the past with the Patriots, Bill Belichick he does it. He's only done it once or twice over the last, it seems like 50 years. But he'll go and he'll take an off season. He'll take a down season. He'll plug and play. He'll bring in some veterans. He'll get by. He doesn't expect to make the playoffs, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to, but he'll take that down year and he'll work that down year and then turn around and come back full force the following year. And I got a feeling with Dante Hightower coming back, Patrick Chung's out of the question because he's retired. But with Dante Howard coming back, with Kyle Duggar coming up, the second-year safety, the way that he performed last year, I think Adrian Phillips is a complete sell right now. Not to mention that he's 29 years old. He's never been an elite type athlete whatsoever. He's just been a guy, but he's a smart ball player, so he managed to do his job well last year as a linebacker hybrid safety for Bill. He ended up with, I believe it was close to 125 tackles, maybe 120. He was well within reach. He won a lot of people some leagues last year as a safety or slash linebacker, hopefully safety. But I think it's on the downside. I don't think that with Hightower coming back, what they drafted in the past for the other linebacker, they still got Dewell Bentley there. And I don't think that the starting strong safety job is completely his. I think that they're going to really give the second-year guy, Duggar, whatever his name is, Kyle Duggar, I think they're going to give him that look. So right now, if not right now, you're not going to maximize any type of trade value. I wouldn't draft him personally this year. I got to move on. It's time. Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. I probably moved on from him last year, in New England, just because of everything you said. Belichick rotates in. He plays matchups. He's not a guy who just lets somebody sit there and be a stud unless they're an absolute stud. And, Adrian never was that guy. He's obviously good. He puts together some nice performances here and there, but he was never someone who just lit the world on fire. And I was never expecting that out of him. And I think he's just someone you can't trust week to week. You can trust him in the sense of being on the field and racking up a few tackles, but that upside that he offers versus his floor just makes him very unappealing. It's not that he's junk. It's kind of what I've been saying with a lot of players. They're not awful, but just you don't have that ceiling you want when given their floor, and you just want to look elsewhere at their current drafted position.
What do you think, Elvin?
No, man. I mean, you covered it all, and then James just came in and put the cream on the top. So.
Right. Yeah. I think Phillips' best appeal about last year and everything was that he was so cheap. He was going later in drafts. He was on a huge amount of waiver wires, probably, just like he'd been off and on the waiver wires in most dynasty leagues, depending on how deep that format was. So all that appeal and where he ended up the end of the season, but it's over. I think the ship sailed at this point, and once he may find it hard to find work after this season, to tell you the truth, at his age and his actual mediocre talent. To me, he'd make a better coach than player. But let's see. That was one of mine. James, Elvin, whichever.
I can come in hot again. I know this is one of your guys, Gary, so maybe cover your ears, but I'm out on Danielle Hunter as being an elite defensive lineman and being an elite edge rusher for fantasy purposes. I think Minnesota's doing all they can to tell us they're not positive he's coming back and being the Danielle Hunter of old. They drafted Patrick Jones. They drafted Janarius Robinson. They took Jalen Twyman on the inside. They signed Stephen Weatherly. Do they need other edge rush help? Yes, they did. Are these guys first-round picks? No, they're not. But I think that he's going to have a lot less snaps, at least to start the season, than anyone wants out of one of their top edge rushers, the number one guy that they've drafted. And I just think that he's someone who I'm okay with flipping today because I don't like what I'm seeing the team tell me. And I don't think that he's just going to come back and be an elite star. I'm talking a lot of speculation here. I'm talking a lot of I don't like what I see versus throwing pure stats out here right now. But I'm bullish on him. Again, I don't think he's going to crash and the world's ending. I still think he might end up as a DL1 at the end of the year. But the whole process of getting there, maybe having a lot of Jekyll Hyde games where he has some ginormous games, and then he has 3 games where he's invisible. I'm not really interested in seeing where he's going and what he's doing. I'd rather let someone else deal with him, and I get someone who's a lot more consistent on my roster. Again, I'm coming in hot with these high-end, high-value defensive linemen, but I'd like to just kind of flip them and go and grab someone who doesn't have as much beautiful namesake as Neil Hunter, but also could be just as good. Give me Harold Landry and something else to get him. Maybe I'll take Bradley Chubb and another lineman of Bradley Chubb's caliber. I know neither one of them is Danielle Hunter, but do I think at the end of the season they might be Danielle Hunter? I think it's possible. Not to say that they're going to go up as much as maybe Danielle Hunter's coming down.
Yep. And to be clear, you're talking overall edge rushers.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Yes.
Right. What do you think, Elvin?
See, whenever you said Bradley Chubb, I kind of chuckled because that's my guy, man. I don't think the guy can stay healthy to save his life. He's only 24, so that's kind of the age group I'm looking for. Like, I want to ship these guys out while they're young, and I can still pitch it on that. And, like, his name alone sells him, right? So, Bradley Chubb, 24 years old, but the guy, I don't think he's played a full season since entering the league. I mean, he's had his ACL, his ankle. He's been on pitch counts. He's just always beat up. I don't see a case where he finishes a whole season. I don't want guys like that on my roster. So
right, yeah, and when it comes to Chubb, I'll hit on Chubb first. I totally agree. He had the opportunity last year to really step up with Von Miller out. He did not. He didn't at least hit that peak hype and stuff. And then again, I believe he was hurt. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm with you on Chubb personally. When it comes to Hunter, I look at it knowing that I'm going to get defensive with you there, James. I'm looking at it like this. Okay. So Joey Bosa, he's a risk. Nick Bosa, he's a risk. Hunter, sure, he's a risk. Tell me a defensive end in that top 5 that doesn't hold some type of risk when you draft them or get them. Chase Young.
I'll
Chase
say
Young's
Chase
still
Young
not
and Myles
proven.
Garrett, but that's the cream of the crop.
Okay, yeah. Oh, Myles Garrett. I stand corrected, Myles Garrett, but still up in that range. All right. I still have a little bit of faith in Hunter if he plays, and that's true. He's only 26. I don't think that he's lost his step. I think he's 26. Don't quote me, folks, but he's around that age. He is still young. So we'll see. I think Minnesota's moves that they've been making is more cap. I think they're paying the shit out of Hunter. So maybe that's how he ends up not being a Viking. But I don't have a really good argument for you. I haven't since we've ever had this topic on the plate. So I'm still a believer. And sometimes it's those gut calls and reading the tea leaves separately that it really counts and is those fine hairs of splitting what's going on in front of you. So so do you want to talk some more about Chubb? Do you want to add anything about Chubb?
No, I just think his name, his age, he's a prime sell candidate. And I mean, last year, like you said, I mean, he had all the opportunity in the world, but then he battled injuries. I mean, I think he only missed 1 or 2 games last year, but he was on a pitch count for a majority of the season. Yeah. So it's just you finally get your opportunity, and here you are fighting injuries again. Get out of here.
Malik Reed, actually, I was telling people to pick him up in certain matchups. Malik Reed had a better year than Chubb. Malik Reed was a backup, third guy in, and he got to play on the strong side. At that, they gave Chubb Von Miller's weak side, which is the more opportune position to get to the quarterback, but yet Malik Reed playing even less, if I remember right, less amount of time than what Chubb got, led the Denver Broncos in sacks. So I was hoping to see Malik Reed come up a little bit, but of course they didn't move on from Von Miller. They got to have their little staple there. But and he's probably another one we could say that is probably he's got to be stocked down if his stock's not already down. I mean, his age, missing last year and stuff. Even he was already losing a step the year before, in my opinion. Maybe the last 2-3 years, to be honest. But he is a franchise name, so it's about all they got there, I think. So, all right. Well, you want to add another one, Elvin? You're kind of want with Chubb there with the Hunter. So why don't you throw us another name if you have one?
Yeah, I wasn't ready. But no. I mean, so Von Miller, of course. I have Devin McCourtney. I mean, he's been good for so long, but he's 33 years old now. I think he just signed what'll be his last contract in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I don't see him playing past 35. Patriots went ahead and extended him for 2 years, and that's kind of where I'm at. He's not someone that you're going to get a whole lot of value for. So I mean, if you're contending, he's always been a solid player. Go ahead and keep him. But I mean, if you're rebuilding, even if you can get a late draft pick for him, go ahead and do it. That's kind of where I'm at with him.
Yep. I can see it too. They moved him to free safety when they let Harmon go, and where he used to play more of a jack or up in the strong safety position, So yeah, he took a hit that way too, and he's old, like you said. He's going to be out there. He's not wanting to make that contact, That's how he plays 16 games a season. Stay out of harm's way and let the young dudes do it. That's what they're there for. What do you think,
Yeah,
James?
exactly. I agree with both of you guys. He's someone who's just kind of aged himself out of fantasy relevance. It's not that he's awful on the field or that he's, incapable of putting up numbers, but he's trying to maximize his longevity. And by doing that, he's not going to be a fantasy star. He's going to be a guy. And if you need a guy, I guess you can roll with him, but you probably are already in a position where he doesn't need to be a guy you roll with because
Right.
you already have a good roster. So yeah, I'm out on McCourty as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess that brings me up, and I've been trying to tell people all year, I am completely, and this hurts as a Ohio State fan. Jermaine Baker days, in my opinion, in Miami they were already beginning to be over last year. I watch these doing my start set charts for members. I watch these snap counts. I watch who plays, and they were already supplementing him out with Roberts last year until Roberts got hurt, and then they had to put Baker back in. And I think this whole bringing McKinney in is just icing on the cake. I don't expect much out of Baker at all. So if you can get any value, if you have anybody in your leagues that you can sell that name, or they're a Miami fan, whatever it takes, I don't think you should wait. I think you should get rid of him now, if at all possible.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with him as well. He's a guy who's young enough, so he still has that shine on him. He's on a Miami defense that, in theory, is getting better and is getting sexier. They're just kind of like the Washington football team in that they're all, as a unit, on the rise. So, in theory, someone in your league probably sees Baker and goes, "Ooh, I like that." But yeah, there's a lot of reasons to go. He's not going to be a fantasy impact player. He's going to be just a guy. There's probably a lot of me saying that a lot today, and it's true. He looks like someone who's not going to be outside of the NFL, not on a roster anywhere, but on your fantasy roster, yeah, I can see trying to move on from him. He does not look like he's ever met any of the hype that was there when he got drafted.
No. What do you think, Elvin?
No, see, I mean, I kind of like Jerome Baker, honestly.
Yeah. Are you getting defensive on me?
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of that age gap where I like to ship him out. But I mean, he's been good, and I feel like last season, I mean, he was one of his better. And I mean, he ended the season great with the whole Miami defense. I mean, they all ended it great. But I mean, I like Jerome.
Yeah. To me, it's more. So he's been good for IDP purposes. IDP production by default is basically how I'd sum that up. And that's tough because, being a Ohio State fan, that's the one thing that I am a fan of. It's tough. It's tough to watch these guys. It's like watching Darren Lee come in a few years ago, and I don't even know he's on a roster right now. And he's probably still under 26, 27 years old. I'm just, I had seen enough of Baker to begin with. Watched some film on him when he first entered the league, and I was like, this guy's got to really take a step. And in my opinion, he just hasn't. So those snap counts that I watched last year, there were games where he was healthy, and I watched, they played Roberts over him. And unfortunately, well, no, I can't say unfortunately, but Roberts got hurt. Then they turned around and went back to Baker. He did finish up the season well. So, it's just somebody that I'm thinking he's knocking on that door. I could see him. I don't think he could start anywhere else, tell you the truth. I think he's not that good of a guy, good of a linebacker. But I'm not getting defensive about it. So, yeah, folks, I'm going to keep saying it. So, picked on one of Elvin's guys there. Not a sell. Yeah. All right. That was mine.
I'll come in hot with another name because I'm just going, and I'm going to move away from defensive linemen, and I'm going to move over to the secondary, and I'm going to talk about Landon Collins. He's another name that reminds me of Aaron Donald. That's why I'm segueing to him, in that he's a name that everyone knows. He's been around for a while. He's tied to a team that's supposed to be very good. But I don't know how much I'm buying of him as an elite guy for much longer. there's not a lot of writing on the wall that says he's just going to fall off this year. So you can get a lot for him in a trade package, but I can't see any world where he's higher in value than he is today moving forward. He's going to start aging. He might get hurt again. He might not. He might put up a great year, but no one's going to want to buy a 30-year-old safety for a very high price. And he's not there yet, but he's creeping up on it. And I just think that it's another person that when you look at it from a dynasty perspective, you want to get out from under him unless you've already built that roster where you're going, this is the championship team. If you think you're championship caliber, I think that he's a guy who should be on your block. No one's going to say, oh, I don't want him. Everyone wants Landon Collins on their team right now. So you can find someone to give you a pretty nice penny because it's preseason. We're going to lead up to that season. And what does everyone do? They try and perfect their roster before week 1. And the problem is when you're perfecting your roster, you give away too much value only to see it all just crumble in week 1 when 3 of your guys don't show up the way you think they will. And I think Landon Collins is a guy that I want to flip, get some more assets. I want to diversify him out because I just think he's at peak value. And when I see someone at peak value who isn't the absolute guy, like Christian McCaffrey on offense, I want out. I want to get my value back. And unless I'm competing for that ring today, I'll move on.
What do you think, Elvin?
No, I mean, I kind of feel like he's past the age of max return, and he still helps you win games. So he's probably someone that I'd even try to acquire or just keep on my roster and just let his fantasy relevance expire on my roster, like because he's been that kind of player, rather than go out and kind of shop him and get my value back. But that's just where I am with him.
Yeah, I'm not a. I mean, if somebody's willing to give me what I want, I would probably move him because I think that, I don't see him as that. I guess I don't see him as that top 5 or 6 strong safety anymore. So I think that I know what I know. I think that I could find somebody to replace him or just come close enough to make it worth moving him. But I would definitely have to get what I wanted out of him. I really don't have an argument. I'd like to see him come back after last year's slow start. Looked like he did lose a step, but it was a new defensive scheme. So, it's like one of those things. I like him enough that I'm probably going to sit on him unless I can get that max value out. And I'm not so sure you can get the max value that he had the prior to last season because of how that season went, getting hurt and starting this year out. So I'm kind of a mixed review on that. So, but I can respect that call, James. I can see that one. And Curl sure did step in last year, that what 6th, 7th rounder or something. Hopefully they'll find a way to have him on the field. I hate to see him waste him at free safety. But, we'll see. Landon Collins might not even – I mean, it's not impossible. Landon Collins is not on that roster day one. It depends what they do. So, but that was another one. That was a good one. Elvin, we on you, I think?
Yeah. So I have another guy kind of like that, DeMario Davis, where like – in a scenario, yeah, you let him expire. But if you follow the Saints closely, I mean, he's been phenomenal since coming to New Orleans. I love him. He's literally my favorite player in the league now that Drew Brees has retired. But a lot of people don't realize, I mean, we lost Tuttle and Trey Hendricks. Mm-hmm. The defensive line is a linebacker's best friend, and he lost 2 key components. I mean, Trey Hendricks led all defensive ends in sacks, 13.5. And then Tuttle was just a big man, like he was a clogger, and he made linebackers' jobs so easy. Alex Anzalone and DeMario Davis have kind of had a connection at that second level, and now like the Saints didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so we have Zach Bond, who we drafted last year, didn't really make a whole lot of noise, but now he's going to be kind of one of the fresh faces back there. So I'm worried that it's going to be too much on DeMario Davis to overcome. He's coming off of another great year. Maybe you can sell him, but there's a chance that you won't get what he's worth because he's kind of, even with his great performances, he remains like a sleeper. Like people just don't talk about him. Another year of Pro Bowl snub. But I would try to feel that out. I mean, if you're in the league with maybe some Saints fans, try to ship him their way. But he's another guy that I think stock's going down because of that defensive line.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he's 31, 32 too.
32, yeah.
Yeah. So at the same time, there are going to be people that are contenders in your league that I would give you a second rounder or a 2022 second rounder for the guy just to help anchor my team if I was a contender this year. So there is possibilities here with some of these older players still to get some value out of them. So that's I have no arguments for you. It looks like they've already decided. I mean, when was the last time we've seen the Saints put any draft stock into a linebacker? This year was the first year in a long time, if I remember right.
Well, last year was Zach Ball, and this year, I mean, they went the defensive end.
Right. Well, I'm talking linebacker though. I mean,
yeah.
Did they draft one last year? Linebacker? No,
not 20. Not this year. They did the year before. Yeah.
Yep. Anything, James?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it. He's the type of player where it's like he's going to produce, and if he's on your roster, you're probably not going to get anything back for him. You know, like Elvin said, if you have a Saints guy in your league, you might grab something, but in all likelihood, someone's going to look at him and go, "Yeah, he's a 32-year-old linebacker on a team that's defense is fine. He's got some value, but am I going to give you things for him? Probably not." So he's one of those guys I see as, his shelf life will expire. If you're rebuilding, though, he's one of those people you don't want on your roster because he won't be there when you're trying to compete. So you flip him for a fourth, a fifth, fine, do it, because you can just fill that roster spot in with somebody else who's got approximately close to his upside in the short term. And in the long term, they might actually be on your roster. So I get it. I'd move on from him. You know, thinking in a dynasty mindset, age is definitely more than just a number. It's something to pay a lot of attention to. And Davis is on the wrong side of that. He might stick around for another 2 years. He might be a London Fletcher out there who just never seems to go away and is always playing. But at the same time, am I betting on that? No, I'm out too.
Yeah. And I want to be clear too. I said something about, if the 2022 or whatever, I'm not keeping that pick. I'm just going to wait until it's primed up and then I can trade it for a known commodity. So I'm not going to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. There would have to be like 30 great linebackers in the class for me to do that. So I'm not a pick person, but I just wanted to say you got to get some value. So even though that pick is not value to me personally, because I prefer the player than a known player, but that value is going to hold for somebody in your league. Yeah, you can flip it. If nothing else, is draft day. The draft picks become gold to those guys that like to draft. So let's see. I was going to talk about Michael Kaiser, but I've got to be honest. You brought him up, Elvin. I don't think that we see Trey Hendricks in Cincinnati have nearly as good a year as what he did last year with the Saints. I am one that as you mentioned, they've lost a couple of people. They lost another guy. What was his name? Tuttle.
Yeah, Tuttle.
And they had a rotation going. They kept a fresh thing going on there, and I think that Hendricks benefited from that. With Cameron Jordan, I know Davenport's never lived up to what his hype was supposed to be, but I think Hendricks was a beneficiary of the outstanding line and the rotation that they had. And I don't think that he's going to have that same opportunity, the same situation in Cincinnati. So I'm thinking that personally, prior to his 2020 season, he hadn't done much of anything. I do understand that guys develop, and a lot of these guys don't until they start hitting their prime years of 26, 27 years old or whatever it is, don't do it. But I just don't think it's going to be the same situation. I think he's going to see the field a lot more. If he plays defensive end, I think it's going to be on the strong side. I think Sam Hubbard is the main pass rusher up there. And I just don't think that we're going to see that type of performance out of Hendricks. So considering he's a defensive lineman, I would sell him now. I would sell him I think his peak value is right now, personally, coming off last season.
I'll come in and I'll get a little defensive. He's kind of like Bradley Chubb in my eyes in that I like him at where he's currently priced. I don't think that there's anyone in a league right now who's looking at Trey Hendrickson and going, oh, I've got myself a future stud. They're looking at him as the Bengals' number 2 pass rusher. So there's some kid gloves on him. Nobody's diving in full force there. And I like him as a guy who's going to actually produce volume. He might not be getting a ton of sacks. So if you're in a sack-heavy league, maybe you want to move away. But people are going to be running all over this Bengals team late in games, and he's going to pick up that production by default. He's going to get himself some tackles. He's going to be a high floor guy. And as your DL 2.5, your DL 3, your DL 3.5, I like him. I think he's a very safe play there. You don't have the sky is the super high ceiling, but also, maybe the Bengals somehow do put it together offensively, and he does get some pass rushes late in games. I like what I'm seeing. I don't love him as a 3, 4, 5-year guy, but in the short term, at the price he's at and what he's going to do, I'm more of a hold than a sell. So I like him, and I'll get a little defensive and say I don't think the sky's necessarily falling in on him, and he's at his peak value, and the rest of his time in Cincinnati will be a negative downturn. I think he'll manage well enough.
All right.
Yeah.
Elvin?
I'm with James there. I mean, I don't think you'll ever see the 13 sacks again for probably the rest of his career. I mean, that's asking a lot out of any player, but I think his motor is what gets him there. Like, that's what separates him. Like, I don't think he's this extreme talent. I don't think he ever was. I mean, he wasn't recruited as one going to college in Florida. He wasn't as one coming into the NFL. Like, he's not an extreme talent, but he has like an undying motor that only gets stronger as the game progresses. And with the Browns, I mean, he's going to see teams you have Lamar Jackson who likes to scramble. That gives him more time to like get to someone like that. You got Joe Burrow. They pass a lot. He was super successful against teams like Matt Ryan, the Falcons, who drop back a whole lot because, I mean, he just gets to learn how that offensive tackle goes. So he's just a guy that gets stronger and stronger as the game goes on. He's extremely intelligent. I think he learns offensive tackles throughout the game. And, I think he's fair value where he is. I just don't think anyone should expect 13 sacks again for the remainder of his career.
See, I think that's what I'm basing this off of. I remember when when the Bengals first signed him, I was sitting here thinking to myself, okay, there are people going to fall in love with him and totally forget about Sam Hubbard because Sam Hubbard was banged up all last year, and he was not that guy. So I think he's at his peak value now if you find the right person. But, hey, you guys are probably right. He might be a solid player the rest of the way out. But, yeah, you got to find somebody that is looking at that 13.5 sacks and their mouths watering. Well, here you go. Give me what I want for him. But we're good to go. So we're running on about 45 minutes. I'm going to ask you guys to pick out. I know you probably have some more, and maybe we'll do this topic again. But pick out one hard line that you have left, and we'll cover them.
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go with another kind of top high-end guy who I don't think their floor is falling in, but I don't know they're necessarily a high-end guy, and that's Derwin James. He's been hurt so often. Not to say that I think injury risks and being
James came into this with the gloves off. He's like, wham!
I did. I wanted to come in with some hot names that people don't want to hear.
Definitely did. All right.
I want to come in and have people actually think, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure all of these guys I'm name dropping aren't going to just fall off a little bit, but some of them are. And I think Derwin James is one of those guys. Not necessarily to say he's going to get hurt again. That's a child's argument. That's not how injuries work. But is he going to be on a pitch count? I think he probably will be. I don't think he's just going to roll in and get 100% of those snaps.
Will
I think
he be a gun shy? I mean, just
exactly.
will he be? Well, another step, and that guy's got him instead of me taking on whatever's going to put me on the bench.
Exactly. He's not a top 5 safety. Like he's done what he's done. He's been hurt. He's not someone you're just going to come in gung-ho and be like, oh, he's going to be great again. There's been too much that happened. There's going to be too much that the team sees. They're going to want to preserve him. By preserving him, he's not going to play all the snaps. Is he going to be good when he's out there? Yeah, he is. He's not trash. He's a very good player. But do I think that I could flip him right now, especially once preseason rolls around and once he has a few beautiful plays or maybe in season? I don't know if his price is perfectly at peak right now. I wouldn't say that. But is he someone I'm considering trading? Yeah, he is. I think you can flip out and you can get something nice for him. And I think you can net yourself a profit. If he gets hurt again, his stock will crash. I don't think that he's more prone to being hurt than any other NFL player, but I think he has the most injury risk because his price will plummet if it does happen. And I don't want that risk. Give me someone else who's in that top tier who doesn't have that downside that James has. I'd consider moving on. None of these guys, Aaron Donald, Danielle Hunter, none of them are people I'm saying just get rid of them, sell them for whatever you can. I'm saying if you can find someone in your league who loves them, flip them for someone whose name might not be as hot, get another asset with them. Often in fantasy, you want to be the one who's getting the one hot name and trading 3 or 4 names to get that name. You want to not diversify your assets. You want to have them all as one person so you can use those roster spots elsewhere. I'm saying with these guys, I might want to diversify out. I might want to turn them into 2 or 3 players, 2 players and a pick, 3 players and a pick. I'm thinking about these things. Obviously, each league's different. Each league setting is different. But these are the players you want to think about doing that with. And James is up there on that list.
What do you think, Elvin?
No, I'm with James. He makes some pretty valid points there.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to follow James up, ain't it?
I try and come in hot. I do.
Yeah, he comes in hot. And That's. I'm glad that James is on getting defensive side. I mean, I didn't take slack, but my days of taking slack on Twitter when I put this shit out there is pretty well been over with. I get questioned some, but I ranked him. I just want to verify where I put him because I'm pretty sure that I dropped him down, and it was enough to get some people's attention. I totally agree. The guy was phenomenal his rookie season. And again, not to just harp on the whole injury issues, but I mean, just by right, I dropped him down to, where's he at? I apologize. I got where's he at? 19th. I got him at 19th, just based off of the whole question. What kind of player is he going to be when he comes back to the field? I'm a prove it, let me see it type of dude. And I've seen him miss more games than he's played, if I remember right. So that sums it up for me because James said the rest, unless you want to add something, Elvin.
No.
Yeah, who you got for us?
I got Isaiah Simmons. I know James was talking earlier about getting rid of guys after their rookie season while they're still that big prospect name. And I think that glove fits Isaiah Simmons perfectly. I mean, he was drafted 8th overall, big name coming into the draft, one of the best prospects of 2020. But the thing that made him so great at Clemson is he was kind of that Swiss Army knife, he played everything on defense. I mean, you seen him out wide at corner, you saw him at safety, linebacker, inside, outside. And I think the NFL game is proven a little fast for him. And the Cardinals are no, look, you have to master inside linebacker. Then we'll let you play outside. We'll let you become that Swiss Army knife. But first you need to learn inside linebacker. And the fact that he doesn't seem to have that mastered yet. Worries me that maybe he's not the prospect that everyone thought he was, and you can still sell him based on the fact that he was the 8th overall draft pick and a huge name coming out of Clemson.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I said James threw the gloves off. You threw the gloves off and took your mouthpiece out, man. I'm getting defensive. I'll tell you, there's probably a lot of people out there, but you're probably right. Considering any hype value that he might have had, he's going to start taking a hit because of Collins. But I'm a believer that him focusing on one position is a good thing. So I'm still on the Simmons. I'm on Simmons more than I am Collins. But you're like one of those stockbrokers that makes the good gut call beforehand, and you're probably not going to lose out on much in an overall aspect. I don't think in the future that we'll see a Simmons or Collins being a top 5 option because they're standing next to each other. So they're both going to end up getting theirs. They'll probably hit the triple digits, but it's just going to be inside the triple digits, like 105, 110 or something. So we're not going to get that 150 kind of production and combined tackles out of either one of them. But yeah, you come in swinging on that one. That was a good one. I like that.
You know, I was trying to think of what linebacker I wanted to go with on my list, and ultimately I haven't said one yet because I like all the linebackers. I don't really think there's anyone overinflated, but Isaiah Simmons is a really good pick, Elvin. I like that a lot. You know, right now with the Jordan Hicks trade news, he's going to get out of there. Simmons has so much shine on him, and he has too much shine on him. He's a second-year guy who, like you said, was a Swiss Army knife, and Swiss Army knives in the NFL – they usually don't do very well because being a Swiss Army knife in the NFL is a lot different than being one in college. And I think if you set him in there at the inside linebacker, he'll be fine. But can you turn a profit if you trade him? That's a good question, and I think the answer might be yes.
No. Well, I'll wrap this one up. I like that last round, guys. That was really good. So never mind my boxing metaphors there, but I'm going to throw one last name out here, and it's Michael Kaiser. If he has any value whatsoever, you know, the guy was a flop coming in last year. He did not get the job done. They had success with Corey Littleton prior, which Corey Littleton, I believe, was either undrafted or had really low draft stock. I think them getting Ernest Jones with as few picks as the Rams had this year, they got a linebacker. They have not drafted a linebacker like this for a while. So I think he's still a 5th rounder, but when you only had, what they have, like 3 picks in the whole draft, they spent one of them on this Ernest, this rookie. So if I'm a Michael Kaiser owner, which I never was, I'm trying to find a buyer. I'm trying to find a buyer because I got a feeling right after the season, you're going to find them on the waiver wire, just based off of what the Rams do with their defense to begin with the linebackers.
You're not saying anything I don't agree with. I think he's in the bin. No one else we've really mentioned is all the way down there, but I think Kaiser is. If you can get anything for him, take it.
Yeah, the reason I want to throw him in at the end, I want to make I answer questions on Twitter a lot, and I still getting that question. So even to maybe I don't know about Elvin, but maybe to us it's not a question anymore. It's kind of past point. I want to make sure that some people out there have an opinion on it in case they haven't thought about it. Elvin, what do you think?
No, man, I think that was a good last round. I liked it. Yep,
sweet. It wasn't a left hook that you guys was throwing, but it was more of trying to get the general thing. I like this. Well, Elvin, I want to thank you again for joining us. I hope this continues. I hope you're willing to come on Tuesdays with us or whatever we could work out. And James, as always, good shit. And I appreciate what you guys brought to the table today. But we're going to end this. I'm going to urge and ask for you to subscribe. If you've been watching the scrolling text down there, we are giving away Gridiron Ratings 2021 digital draft guides. We're going to start doing that soon. They're not that far away, folks. I know I keep saying that, but I can tell you they're not that far away from happening. Please comment, like, and we'll see you guys next week. What do you think, fellas?
I'll be here.
Bye.
All right.